G'day folks, this is an update on manual point control, and in this video I'll show you some of the materials that I've used. This is 10mm by 3mm aluminium flat bar, which is purchased in 1 metre lengths from my hardware store, and it costs about $2.60 a length. From this 1 metre length I cut approximately 16 60mm length pieces to make the point levers. The next item used is 3/16 threaded rod. I don't know whether you can see that very clearly, but that's roughly 900mm long. And again, it's very cheap. Another critical item in the parts list is the 64mm brass hinge. That's a set of 2 hinges there for $2.50, and out of that I make 4 points. You simply grind down this pin at the end, and then you can knock the pin through, and that will, once you take the pin out, that will separate the 2 pieces of the hinge. And then once I've got the parts separated, I actually form them to about that size, cut them down. You don't want them too big, so that's a good size to use. A critical item is the use of Nylock nuts, 3/16 nylon nuts. They actually are threaded onto each side of each point lever and will hold it in place. Nylock nuts have a nylon insert in the one end of the nut, which locks it to the thread. I don't know whether you can see the nylon insert just in the end of the nut there. That's the smaller end of the nut. They're very effective. I've also got some stainless steel washers, 3/16, and there'll be one washer on each side of a lever, and then a locking nut behind that again. What happens is that the washers seem to attach themselves to the lever, and therefore it's just the washer rubbing against the Nylock nut, so all the friction's taken against the washer as opposed to the lever. That was a bonus. The right angled bracket here is a corner angle bracket. It's 22mm long that way, 22mm, and it's 13mm wide. And I bore those holes out slightly to take the 3/16 rod, and 2 of those brackets will support about 15 levers. This is aluminium flat bar. It's 25mm wide by 1mm thick, and I use this to make the bell cranks. What I do is I measure 25mm from the end, and then with a square put a line across, and then with aviation snips it's quite easy to cut straight through that. And then I do a diagonal across the piece I've cut off, and cut through that as well, which gives me 2 bell cranks out of this 25mm piece. So you can imagine there's quite a few coming out of a 1 metre length. This is aluminium crescent bar. It's 25mm across, and it's slightly curved, as you can see, and I'll be using that as dividers between each point lever, and I'll show you a mock-up of that later on. This is a piece of crescent bar that's been cut off and cleaned up. It's 5mm wide, and that will be a divider between each of the point levers. This is what I'm using for my sliding rod. It's actually a welding rod for an electric welder, and I have a box of these rods. They belong to my father, and they're about 25 years old and well past the use by date. But all I do is clean off this stuff here, whatever it is. It comes off quite easily, and I finish up with a nice piece of rod to use, and they're about a foot long, I suppose, and so my rods are 70 mils long, so I get quite a few out of each box of welding rods. They're very good, but you could use coat hangers or anything that's available. You've just got to match up the rod to suit the hinge. And this is how it turns out. This is one of the rods I've made. This rod is 70 mils long. It's got a 1.2 hole drilled in each end of it. Through one end I've got 0.9 of a mil wire, and it travels through the hole. It's wrapped around 5 times, and that's what goes up through the tie bar. This is the 0.9 of a mil wire. As you can see, it comes in a 50 metre roll. It's quite easy to use. I can bend it quite easily with my finger, but over a short length it'll hold its shape and has a certain amount of spring in it. This is the cable I'm using. It, as I've mentioned earlier in the blog, that this actually was originally a drain cleaner. It had a handle on one end and some sort of fitting on this end, and the idea is that you push it down a drain to unblock it. Well, as you can see, it's like brake cable, and I've got 1.25 mil wire that feeds through that. By the way, this is a length of 25 feet, so it's very good. This is the 1.25 mil diameter wire which I use to push through the cable. As you can see, it comes in a 50 metre roll, so it's going to go a long way. A roll like this, and the other one I showed you, a roll like this is about $6 Australian, so it's the cost of it's quite good. This is some Aluminium Angle. Again, this is a 1 metre length, and it's 12 millimeters wide. It's 1.4 mils thick, and I'll be using this as a stopper come mounting for the point levers, and you'll see better in the mock-up how this thing will actually play its part. Okay, this is a mock-up of a lever frame, although I've only got 5 levers there. Everything's just standing there at the moment, so it's not really adjusted very well. I intend to have about 15 levers in the first frame I build, and the second one will be something similar, and there's a third one to go, which I'm not sure exactly how that's going to go at this stage, but that's the general idea of how it should look. Well, that's all I can show you at the moment. I hope that's been of some help to you. Cheers, Gormo.